All right, let's get this show on the road. What is what is something about what's a problem that y'all don't really like about, I guess, about modern games now, like compared to retro? What's probably the what's probably the biggest thing that
that they're not
that makes you want to go back to retro games?
that they're not complete when they come out.
Yeah, that is.
Live
Hmm.
service, the
Um,
promise to update, and which don't get me wrong, some games like ESO or World of Warcraft, shit like that. But
I sort of agree with that because like I wanted to get Star Wars: The Fallen Order, that new Star Wars game, because I like the other one, but it was so buggy and glitchy at launch. I was like, there's not even a point of buying this. Might as well wait.
it's
And it
kind of
dropped.
it's kind of wild to think when people first heard the whole, yeah, we're gonna release the game and we can update it as we go along. And when that first came around, you're thinking, oh, that's great. That means they can add stuff and they can add more stuff and add some updates, maybe like some new skins and stuff like that. And then you find out, like when the game actually comes out, you find out this whole that is not at all what they intend to do by updating the game. They intend to release it unfinished and finish it after releasing the game, not actually updating it. That's more like finishing the game.
yeah,
It's not. I'm sorry. Go
it's a
ahead.
no. I was just gonna say it's a toss up between that and microtransactions.
Like
Like your killer,
Yep.
you might have some things
like
that
being able to buy a skin rather than find a game like that just kind of takes you out of the experience. I feel like point for me to play games is to get lost in a different world.
move your mic a little bit closer. We lost you a little bit on that.
I was just saying that microtransactions kind of just take the fun out of it, take you out of the experience. You don't get to actually like experience the game. It takes you. I don't know. It ruins it.
It's things like when you hear live service, and then most games that do actually use that buzzword, that tag of live service, it's more like, yeah, we update the microtransactions very frequently, and we don't update the actual game frequently. As where it's so kind of crazy to think about how when you hold up like an N64 cartridge or like a PlayStation disc or something, you think, yeah, this is a finished product, actually. Yeah, you got a lot of games. They might have some glitches and stuff that you can do, but the game is still very playable. Um, in that, like, that's the whole point of, like, the whole reason that speedrunners have beat Super Mario 64 in less than 20 minutes is because of glitches. But the thing is, like, the difference is Super Mario 64 is still playable. And not only that, the glitches sort of end up working out for them because it's a new way to play the game. As where, like, you don't really have glitches in newer games. It's just bugs that, I guess we call them bugs because they kind of plague the game and you can't play it.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah. There aren't any cool glitches in games anymore.
yeah, it seems like there aren't really. And then if they are glitches, they're still like not game breaking. You remember Spencer when Tears of the Kingdom
Halo
came
2.
out?
I was gonna say Halo 2 Rocket Jump.
Yeah, like the
Shit like
rocket
that.
jumping, and you remember when Tears of the Kingdom came out and you had the duplicating glitch? You had the
Yeah.
dupe glitches and stuff like that. It's like, that doesn't break the game or anything. I remember watching a video one time that in Witcher 3, Roach, your horse, got really buggy and finicky whenever you had to cross a bridge. That's no big deal. Just get off the horse, cross the bridge on foot, call your horse, and because in that game your horse would kind of just appear. She didn't actually follow you or whatever. But the
Yeah.
problem is that you remember there was a part where you had to race somebody, and the end of the race, you had to cross a bridge. So You
Mhm.
never got the reward. If of course, if you win the race, you get a little reward. So no one ever got that reward until they fixed that bug. Where, so like, yeah, it didn't break the game, but like you were saying, it kind of breaks your immersion and it
Immersion.
kind of breaks your mood.
Thank you.
It kind of breaks your immersion and your mood and everything when you have to stop and wait for that. And by the way, it's pretty hard to lose the races in Witcher 3, so you're probably sitting there waiting for a little bit. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like they call them live service and updates, but that's not really what's happening.
No, it's
Not
just so they
always. Well,
put out an unfinished
or
product.
it's like it's an actual update every couple of months. So that's one thing that Rust does really good is that they do actually update the game with some stuff every month. That is the way to do updates in a game. Like they do monthly maintenance and fixes and stuff, and they add, hey, here's like two or three new things to play around with for this next wipe for this next month. So have at it. And that's the way. That's a game that does the whole. Like, I don't know if they technically call it live service, but that's a game that actually does it right. Is where they actually do. Yeah, of course they update. They don't update the microtransaction store a whole lot. It's much more about actually updating the game and adding quality and content and stuff to the game. But not every. And if we're being
Company
astute here,
follows that.
yeah, if we're being astute and polite, not every company does that.
Ubisoft.
You know, I feel like there are also not a whole lot of
343.
like a whole lot of new IP based games.
Yeah,
Either.
that too.
A lot
You-
of games these days are either remakes or like not saying continuation of franchises are bad, but like
You know, that's something
we got
else.
a lot of continuations.
That's kind of something else I wrote down in the game is, or in these little notes here, or it's like how much games change over time between like genre shifts. You remember like back in the 90s on PlayStation and the N64, it was all about like those collectathon platformers. Like those were some of the biggest things like
Yeah, that's really
DK64,
what we
Banjo
mean.
Kazooie, Crash Bandicoot, Mario 64. Like that was kind of the thing. And now you just don't see a lot of that anymore. You see a whole lot of different like online, like pretty much anything online is what really dominates the market now. You know, every like 2 or 3 years you get that one you'll get a single player experience that really just rocks the world like Tears of the Kingdom, God of
Baldur's
War,
Gate.
Baldur's Gate, um Red Dead Redemption, Red
Yeah,
Dead 2
Red Dead 2 is amazing. That was a good game.
and like everyone, but it seems like there's some serious genre shift where it's like the biggest games that most people play now are probably like Battlefield, uh, COD, Valorant, Apex, like a bunch of shooters. Because I think it's super. There's so much framework that's already laid out for shooters that that's kind of. I mean, I'd like to say that's what's in now, but dude, I remember people going. I can't say that's what's in now when I was in middle school. Um, everybody was all over Modern Warfare 2 and Halo 3. I
Yeah.
can't.
Counter Strike, not to mention.
Yeah,
Counter Strike big for a long time.
Counter Strike's always been huge. Um, and like it's kind of crazy to just look at some serious genre shift about how like back in the 90s, yeah, it seemed to be there was a whole lot like some of the big stuff was um were those little like platformers and collectathons. And now like you just don't like it. You want to know the last I'm not for I'm pretty sure I'm right on this, but the last really big collectathon that people really cared about was some game called Super Mario Odyssey. I don't know if y'all have heard of it before.
No, never.
Yeah, it's is that an indie title? Um, but that's what but that's kind of what was going on with like a bunch of genre shift that now people want just I think part of it is just wanting different games. Like you can't like that can't dominate. I'd like to say actually I think part of the reason the shooters really dominate the market now is like simply because like they're online. Like that's or at least that's one of the big reasons they dominate the market is because we know how dominant online games are and it's
Yeah,
really easy to make shooters online.
people love them some shooters. Yeah, and the market's oversaturated with them. You got Fortnite, Call of Duty.
Yeah,
They don't really got
Battlefield,
Yeah.
enough.
Apex, Valorant.
Well,
Yep,
battle
Overwatch coming
royales.
in too.
Yeah, yeah, I should have wrote that down, but yeah, you see like you remember like 5-ish years ago, like everything had a battle royale feature to it.
Mm.
Everything.
Everything had a battle royale. And that trend has, that's gone south now. You just don't really see because it's like it had its time where it was I'd like it wasn't really new. It's more like cuz what was it? DayZ is the original battle royale,
Yeah, Daisy was
Hmm.
around for a while,
but
but
it's
I think
something
Daisy wasn't Daisy a little more survival esque.
I think so. I think that's right. But
I think so too.
like you look at how many battle royales there were back, 5-6 years ago, and it's like everything. Counter Strike, for crying out loud, Counter Strike had a battle royale mode added to it. A battle royale mode that was like booty butt cheeks. Like that's how
Mhm.
big the battle royale trend was. Even Counter Strike had a battle royale mode, and it sucked. That was really loud, but
Mhm.
it was not great. And I think now it's kind of the trend that you have the single players that come up every couple of years that just rock the world. I think God of War 4 is what it kind of reminded people. No, actually, single player is definitely not dead. No
The
chance single
God
player being dead.
Both God of Wars were actually amazing. God of War
Yeah,
4 and
both of those
Ragnarok.
games were so good.
Yes, they
Both
were
of
like
those games were
movies.
so good. And they just really
Especially the
reminded you. Like, and then you have things like Tears of the Kingdom and Baldur's Gate that remind you, like, no, hey, single player is still here, fellas. Single player is still here. It's still here,
we need
and it's still
we need
good.
more single player games like that. You know
Like,
what else we don't get a lot of? We don't get a lot of co-op on the system games.
I was thinking
Yeah,
about that too. I
couch
was
couch co-op got fucking extinguished a long time ago because
see,
online.
um, I was Spencer. I told you a little bit about it, and I think it's while you stepped out. And um, Super Smash Brothers Brawl, one of its kind of I actually listened to Scott DeWaz's video on the Smash series, and he treated the co-op like you can play. Okay, you can do the adventure mode co-op, you can do the target test co-op, the boss rush. Like I think you can basically do everything except classic mode co-op. And Scott
Yeah.
just glanced over it like it wasn't a big deal. I'm thinking, and this is personal bias, but I definitely don't think I'm alone. When I said, whoa, 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 slow down, dude. We're just gonna act like co-op with your buddies isn't a big deal. And of course, this is back before couch
Yeah, right.
co-op was exterminated. But I'll have to show you. I don't think I ever showed you any of our videos when me and him played co-op and Brawl because he'd play Falco and I'd play Fox. I'm thinking, whoa, slow down, dude. Like we're just gonna act like the co-op isn't like we're just gonna act like that's not a big deal. That was great. That was an awesome feature. And I think maybe part of it is because like now co-op is so extinct that we really appreciate it because we don't have a lot of that anymore. And it's something like an online game is not the same as a co-op. It's not really the same. It's the same concept that you're working together, but
It's not.
I think everyone knows when I say it's not the same, they know what I mean. It's like the Halo campaigns. You know how awesome that is that you can experience that with a friend at the same time. Look, it's not, and again, it's also not the same with you're both there and you just pass the controller back and forth during the campaign or something. Like
Yeah.
actual co-op games, games that were designed to be played, that were really designed to be solo, but then the developers, you know what? Here, you can play it with a friend. Yeah, sure. Like y'all remember how much fun it was? Because I've done it with both. We've played like when we did Mario 64 co-op when the both of us I know I've played a Mario 64 co-op run with both of y'all. You know how much fun that was
Hmm.
playing co-op Mario 64, a game that was designed to be played solo. And
I
in
know.
this
I always.
case,
I know. I always wish that I could do that as a
yeah,
kid.
like or even sort of when we would do randomizers, when we would do co-op randomizers for Ocarina of Time or Majora, how much fun that was playing a
Brought life
game.
back to the game.
Yeah, playing a game that was designed to be played solo, but you're experiencing it. That's like the best way I guess the most truthful way I can put it is experiencing it with a friend. It's not the same as like I said, passing the controller back and forth or on the like you remember Jordan when we would do our quote unquote playthroughs where someone gets the controller for 20 minutes and then the other one's kind of just sitting there jerking it for 20 minutes, probably just being there. I mean, it's pretty it is so different when
I remember doing that as a kid, having like a hard time on a boss, and like we'd all switch off so you could beat it.
yeah. See, that made a big difference having that option, and now and it's not that every game needs to have a like not everything needs to have a co-op. Like it would you think something like a modern game, think like God of War. What if you had a friend who just kind of played as Atreus? And I'm a little iffy about that. But when it comes to some games where you think, yeah, this could totally have a co-op totally would have worked here. Um, like they axed Halo Infinite's. They were gonna do co-op campaign, split
They
screen
cut it.
campaign, and they axed it after they promised. They used that word, and ish, nothing like a broken promise. But it's kind of cool to see like how to, and then you look at things like game series and how they like add, how they kind of innovate and add things with each new game. Like you think about stuff like uh like Zelda, how if you're an outsider looking in, you're thinking, I mean, it's pretty much the same game. Like you got your swords on B, you got your bow, you got your boomerang, your bomb, and like when if you're an outsider looking in, you might say it's a lot of the same. But then if you've played the series, that these are very different. They're all very different. They are all the 3D ones especially are very distinct from each other. Like you might ask it's something like if you're the outsider looking in like, "Well, why don't you like Wind Waker?" Like, look, you'd have to play it. And you might like it, but for me I have a hard time going back to Wind Waker.
Yeah.
I can't, and that's just me. I'm not
And I
criticizing
love
it.
it. And I think about it often, and I want to go back to it, and then I think about certain aspects of the game, and I'm like, oh,
And that's not me
do I
being
really
trying.
want to do the Triforce search and the
Yeah,
fucking
see, and
explosion?
it's like every game has got its problem, and it's like Twilight Princess. Do you really like? I love that game, but it
That
also
whole
is
beginning sequence is
that
so long.
that startup sequence. Whew, and then
Even me, who's done it multiple times, has a hard time getting through it in
I
under an
mean
hour.
that's one of my favorite games. That's one of my favorite Zeldas. And yeah, and then like the dungeon design, the puzzle design, the items, it's all different. Like no. These are not the same game. It's this, and then you got things like first-person shooters. Not to totally dunk on them, which is what I'm about to probably do, but like, okay, besides the obvious, like the campaigns and the single players being different, what's different between them?
Between
Like a
what?
couple,
Say that again?
between like like FPS games, like every new edition of COD, like you're buying it. It's the same game. Outside of the campaign and stuff. Of course, that's always different.
Well, look at friggin' all the NBA, 2K,
Yeah, the
whatever.
2Ks and the sports games,
Yeah,
and then you
same
look
game
at
every year, just different roster setup.
and
Maybe
and
different
and
physics.
yeah, and sometimes they do add some different controls and stuff, but I remember it's something else that I wrote down, or maybe I wrote down here. It's like for some games, is that initial, I'll say, is that overall, that core gameplay, is it good enough to hold an audience? And think about it like this. um Mario Party is is basically the same gameplay every game, but somehow but it still holds you because that core gameplay is just so good.
And
It
it's a
is
different experience every time.
so, and yeah, I've think about it this way too. You know how often you'll know what I mean when I say this. When I say a game of CS:GO is partially scripted, because I can tell you, if we play Mirage, you're gonna say, I'm gonna get an op and I'm gonna go Sniper's Nest, and one of two things is gonna happen probably at least 6 rounds out of that game. You're gonna go up there and you're gonna go up there with your op, and some poor soul got there 2 seconds after you, and you're gonna blow him away. Or somehow some guy got there 2 seconds ahead of you, and as soon as you peek out of there, he's going to blow you away. A game of CS is kinda scripted. Like there are a lot of times where, well, it didn't see that coming. As where was something, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's just kind of part of the game. That's kind of the way that game was built. Um, but then you have something like Mario Party that somehow ends up being, in a good way, totally random. And it can still hold an audience. I mean, for crying out loud, there's still people playing the original one from 1999 still. And every other, like a ton of other entries
For
in
what?
between there. So, I kind of think about like how strong is a game's core gameplay kit to how strong is a game's core gameplay kit to maintain an audience?
Yeah.
It's like I remember, you remember I told you about, when that Mario Strikers Battle League came out. First of all, that was also a game that was not finished. It had like 8 characters in it, 12 characters in it maybe at launch, and then a month or two later they started adding more characters. I'm like, couldn't you have just put these characters? And then the only game modes in it, you had the cup battles, and then you had online. And the core gameplay on it was fine, but when the core gameplay kit is fine and all you can really do in it is play online against other people,
They don't have mobile.
I don't know about that.
Is it really considered a AAA game?
And then you think about something like, you remember when Halo Infinite first came out, and we were saying, yeah, dude, this core gameplay of it is like pretty untouchable. It's as far as Halo goes, yeah, this is pretty fantastic. Like we thought Halo 3 was fast paced. This is like fast paced on, on caffeine. But something about that core gameplay. Okay, so I think too part of that comes down
No, the
to.
core gameplay was fine, but the
Oh, I know what you're gonna say.
I don't even know how to explain it. The ranking.
Between ranking and when we were playing
Halo
it.
3's ranking actually was like it didn't even you didn't there was no well, I mean, I guess you got skins for doing certain challenges,
Hmm.
get achievements, but you didn't have to buy them.
Yeah,
It,
you could
it
unlock them.
just it was rewarding. If you won a game, you'd maybe go up. If you lost a game, you'd probably go down 3 levels.
The tale as old as time. And then you think about something like Halo Infinite. When Infinite came out, again, you pretty much only had that core gameplay to deal with because you basically had, casual, ranked, and BTB, which BTB didn't work at launch. So you had casual and ranked. And again, that core gameplay is good, but when the core gameplay is all you have and there's no other way, like no BTB, no SWAT, no Fiesta, no Dodge, no Griffball, all the stuff that actually like Halo is really known for, you don't have it. And all you have is that core gameplay. And that core gameplay can get worn out kind of fast.
Very fast.
So if it's more like, look, you got to have a good core to it and it can't wear out because it's semi-scripted. Then you got something. This is so funny to compare. We're comparing Halo and Mario Party. But it's like there has to be, I think, in things like arena shooters. Yeah, things are kind of scripted because I'm gonna go out here and some chump is gonna perfect me with his BR, and I have no idea where he is, and I'm not gonna be able to react to it. Then you have something like Mario Party where you roll a dice every turn. Okay, it doesn't really get any more random than that. And so weird to think about. But you look at those two, and that's what you're comparing. And it's is Mario Party's core gameplay good? Yeah. Is it something as refined as Halo Infinite's? No. But
Does it
then
need
why
to be?
are we talking about Mario Party like it's good? Because it's also got it's got chance put inserted into it. It's got chance, which shakes up that core gameplay even more. And then it's kind of the same like with Mario Kart because it's racing, dude. Like seriously, you're gonna say like Mario Kart has got better overall gameplay than Halo? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. You want to know why? Because just like Halo, the core gameplay of Mario Kart racing pretty straightforward, pretty accessible, pretty good, but it's also got a layer of chance that makes it that renews that core gameplay every time you pick up an item. I mean, you think about like, yeah, that like, when I think about it that way, I think, holy
Yeah,
crap, dude!
that hits
Mario
on the
Kart has better gameplay than Halo. Halo
it's
Infinite, that is.
becomes predictable. The gameplay.
I even hate to say it.
Rewards.
Even in the GOAT, a game of capture the flag on standoff, there's gonna be that loser prick that just stands on top of the base with the splazer. And you can't do anything about it. Maybe you can beam rifle him real quick, but
Probably me.
they didn't put the regular sniper. It was just the beam rifle on that map, wasn't it? I think
Yeah,
so.
I think so.
But I think that's just kind of like a fundamental flaw that is kind of hard to avoid, I guess, about like I guess arena shooters is they are semi-predictable, semi-scripted to the point that yeah, it can kind of get worn out. It can kind of get worn out. See that was another thing about the battle royales that worked. They had that element of chance, of randomness to them, to where the only scripted part is, yeah, there's a very good chance that you might spend 30 minutes looting and then die to some prick that you never saw. But the difference is that
You could also get a chicken dinner that was so rare.
that that's the best outcome. But also, like, you don't know what's going to happen in that 30 minutes till you just die to some prick who is, crouching in a bush. Like you don't know what's going to happen in that 30-minute span. Or yeah, you might end up winning. And it's not like we've had wins where we got 2 kills total, not a piece, 2 kills total. Yeah, we killed the last 2 guys in the circle. And we've had games where we got like 6 kills apiece. Not many of those, but we also had games where we got like 6 kills apiece. And we couldn't have predicted that. And the core gameplay was good. It's more like, I don't want to say, but it looks like I'm all but saying this. Is like, I don't want to say, look, you have to have more than just good core gameplay. Remember we played like when Infinite came out, dude. We like got up to Diamond 3 or something like that. Like we were up there on the ranking. But after we just stopped playing, I can't really go back to it. Well, why not? I mean, yeah, the core gameplay is good, but I'd rather just play BTB.
Yeah.
I'd rather play BTB because it's got an element of chance to it. And also, I'm not playing with the sweats. Or there are less sweats here.
It's
You
real.
can pick up different, like all sorts of different weapons. You got the vehicles. You got the Scorpion tank, the only vehicle that really matters. But it seems like if you're gonna make online, and I remember thinking too, like if you're gonna make an online game, if that's your selling point, it's gotta have something to it. It's gotta have it has to have more than good core gameplay. Like Halo Infinite, the multiplayer is free. Core gameplay was good, but since that's kind of the main pull of it, really was online. That's what they wanted. It didn't have enough. Then you got something like Mario Kart, Mario Party, Smash. The real appeal of those it's the multiplayer. It's the
Yeah.
multiplayer, the online. So why do those 3 work and Halo Infinite doesn't? Because they've got that randomness aspect, that chance aspect to them. That also, and when it's got something like a randomness or a chance aspect to them, then that just amplifies that core gameplay. It's something like in Mario Party, look, you really don't know what's going to happen. You don't, because you're going to play a new minigame every turn. You literally roll the dice every turn. What kind of item am I going to get?
Remember that one game where you were winning and I ended up with all your shit?
Yeah, when you stole 50
Yeah.
coins, when I lost 50 coins in one turn,
Mhm. We'll have to play that
and
clip.
no one, and no one expected that to happen. And then there's like the, remember when, who was it? I'm sure both of us have, but remember how in Mario Party 4 they have the lottery shops, and we always have the other person pick
Yep.
your card, the little scratcher, and hey man, that could turn the game around.
No,
And
every time I picked for you, I got you a winner.
that is correct. Feel free to keep doing that. And then you have like in Bowser's Big Blast, you always pick the other person's color that they pick in that game. And you don't really get something like that in some of these other online multiplayer games. And it's something like, oh, well, should you say should every game have like a luck base or a chance base in them? Well, I mean, if it can fit, yeah, that's what, dude. That's why I love Fiesta so much in Halo. That's why I love Fiesta so much in Halo is because it's got that chance factor to it. It keeps things fresh every time you die.
Everyone on the same, sort of the same playing
Yeah,
field.
for the most part, until someone gives me a freaking hammer and a sword loadout.
Why is that even a thing?
That's all I could think. It was like, who hates me? Who at 343 hates me? Well, I mean, they hate all their fans, but what?
Ain't no Bungie.
I mean, you think about things like why, and I thought of this too. Is you know how I said to you the other day that when it comes to games, not always, but sometimes less is more. And I thought about something like, uh, you know how like some GameCube games, some N64 games, unless you're trying to if you're just trying to, as they call them in speedruns, any percent it. If you're trying to just to finish the game, then like some of those N64 and GameCube games, like dude, you can finish those in an afternoon, which you don't think about. But what you don't, the way you don't, the perspective you don't usually take on that is, you know how accessible that makes those games? You want to know one of the reasons that it's hard to go back to something like Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild? Is plain and simple, dude, that game's huge. Like that's a commitment if you don't just drop in and play that. You don't just
Yeah.
drop in and play those. That's a huge commitment. You have to seriously put some time into playing those games. As where some of the older ones, yeah, you can kind of just pick up and play them because they're not as long. Like you'll notice whenever you rewatch this, the Witcher footage that I have overlaying this is not from the main game. It's from Blood and Wine, the DLC that I can jump right into as an option that they added. If you wanted to just play Blood and Wine, you can do that. And
I didn't realize that.
yeah, because dude, like that's kind of a commitment if you say you're going to play some Witcher 3 because that's a big game. It's all the same as it's all the same as something like Elden Ring or Dark Souls. That's a commitment. That's going to take some time if you're going to do that. And it's very strange to think, well, isn't the older games actually are more accessible because it's not as much of a commitment to play them.
Yeah,
And
true.
that's so strange to think about. Like, shouldn't it kind of be the opposite? Because, some newer games are a little bit more hand-holdy and have more directions and stuff. But yeah, dude, but they're huge. Like, sometimes less is more because there's so much to do. It's like, where does a game's content come from? When you got a game that's that big, that's so overwhelming to think about. Like, that is super overwhelming to think about when if you get back into a game, like whenever you get back to a playthrough of Tears of the Kingdom, shoot, dude, where do I start? And then you never start because you can never
Yeah,
answer
where
the
was
question. Yeah, or where was I? Like, where was I on this last playthrough? I don't even know. And I think, holy crap, dude! It's like, and I think part of the reason the older ones are accessible is because you know everything about them. That is part of it.
Yeah, 100%.
But you still think about like maybe you think about how different just when you look at maybe a series and you look at how different the games get with each entry. You look at I think one of the famous I'll say famous, but one of the examples being stuff like how you had Mario Kart and you think, dude, it's racing. How can they how can they push that even further? Then you have Mario Kart 64, which is pretty straightforward. You pick your racer and you race. But then you get something like Double Dash, and now, oh shoot, you get two characters, and there are weight classes that have different carts, and there are multiple different carts, and you get two characters, and they have special items so you can mix and match. Oh, dude, that's cool. You got Mario Kart Wii, which, oh, they added bikes and they have a bunch of different characters and a couple of new items. Okay. Like it's like how do different series like how do they kind of
Not keep it the same the next
what is
generation.
what is the
Or,
draw for the next, and then you look at like Resident Evil 5 had co-op.
yep.
And people would say, I mean, Resident Evil 5, it was the actual gameplay, it was okay, and the story was kind of big for such an underwhelming gameplay. Well, yeah, dude, but the co-op was awesome in that game. Yeah, well, the problem is that when you play Resident Evil 4, every other game in the series is gonna feel disappointing, sadly. But the co-op in that game,
It's awesome.
the co-op kind of saved it because if you asked, how the way we did the first time I played RE4 was it was just a playthrough where I played, you watched. And if you'd said, "Well, here, play Resident Evil 5 now and I'll watch." I think yeah, we wouldn't have made it through that. We wouldn't have made it through that game if we weren't doing it co-op.
No,
Just because like yeah,
someone
the co-op in
co-op.
that game kind of saved it. There's not really any other way to put it. The co-op saved that game. And that's not necessarily a good thing, but it worked because they had to do something different from RE4, and it worked. It wasn't great, but it worked. And you look at think about something like how do you how do you add on different um to different games in a series, like how do you succeed a game, I guess. It seemed like you, and then you had something like Mario Party that I mean if we're not mincing words, that core gameplay pretty much stayed the same, but they still made it fresh because the boards operated differently because you had different mini games because
Second one, they gave them costumes.
yeah, back. Oh yeah, I love the costumes. They still had different designs. They had different art designs and different styles and different aesthetics. Like that core gameplay might have stayed the same, but they changed everything else about the game, which still made it fresh. It might again be that outsider looking in is like, well, what's the big deal, dude? Like these games all look the same. Like, well, one, no, they don't. Like I can easily, and it's not like how Mario Party 3 had that little toy box aesthetic to it,
Mm.
and it looked totally like Mario Parties 1, 2, and 3 were totally looked. All of them looked totally different.
Yeah, if
Um,
you were to set up the character models for them, from them, I think, yeah, I think it would.
like you could still see the difference. And it is so crazy to think about how different all that stuff actually ended up being. Like that core gameplay stayed the same, but they changed everything else about the game and it worked, which is pretty awesome. That I just think um they sometimes they Nintendo just really knows how to handle their series, which is it's crazy that how masterful they can be. And then even something like look at the how different Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim are. Like look at how like those like again like, those games have similarities. They are not similar. They have similarities. They are not similar. Those are three. They might be the same genre and everything, and the same. They are not the same. Those are three vastly different games. I mean, it was crazy to think about how like how different series entries can be with how much like how the creators, how the developers decide to shake things up and how they decide to change them
Yeah.
with like we
I mean,
said
like
you got
a
something
Fable.
like
Every
yeah,
one of them was different, but
yeah, and
the
it's like
same.
how it's like they might have similarities but they are not similar or they're not the same. It's something like Mario Party. The core gameplay stayed the same. Everything else is that I guess that's kind of the Nintendo formula because that's how it was in Mario. That core gameplay kind of stayed the same, but they changed a lot of other stuff. Like Mario Sunshine, they added Flood. Like Mario Sunshine versus Mario 64, they have like there are a couple of different moves and jumps you can do, but it's still kind of that same Mario run
Feel
jump,
platformer.
but they added a couple different
Secret
jumps.
levels made you realize that.
Yeah, I love those secret levels just because of that. And it was just great how all that stuff worked out. Man, they knew how to handle they knew how to handle and even like Bethesda knew how to handle change because like we say, like Morrowind, Skyrim, Oblivion,
They were all just upgrade.
woo,
Well,
they were different. They were all different from each other still.
they were different, good ways and bad ways.
Hmm. Still waiting on that sixth entry though. 12 years later, just saying. And like it's like you think about like we were saying earlier, where does a game's content come from? And you look at um think about something like where does a game's content come from? The main content from stuff like Smash, Mario Party, Mario Kart, it all comes from the multiplayer. So you better make sure the core gameplay is good, right? Well, yeah, of course, but like clearly look at Halo Infinite. The core gameplay was good, and that was definitely all about the multiplayer, but it didn't last because that's all it had was core gameplay. Like it had just ranked. But then when they had BTB and SWAT, like snipers, shoddy snipes, Fiesta, okay, that made it a little bit more playable, but sometimes like yeah, those arena shooters, they kind of wore off kind of fast when all you had was just the core gameplay. And then I remember even in like things like WoW, that was kind of the same thing. Once you hit max level, shoot, dude, what do I do now? Do I just
Yeah.
do
What else is there to do?
like you could do rated PvP, which was very samey because what do you know? It was just that core gameplay. Or you could do raiding, which is what do you know? just that core gameplay. That was all it really it didn't have any fun silly stuff to do when you hit max level. It was kind of just yeah, there are two or three things you can do, but that's pretty much it. And I'm thinking, okay, well, again, it's good, and it's kind of got a chance, a bit of chance to it, because at least in something like rated PvP, you might have to change your strategy on the fly with your buddies, but it's still kind of got that arena shooter, that Counter Strike, Halo Infinite, semi-scripted aspect to it. But that's also, again, that's playing against other people, and that might that has a semi. It's not to that degree, not to that successful degree of Mario Party and Mario Kart. It's got a semi chance to it because, hey, what if the other people make a mistake? Unfortunately, some people base their identity off of this game, and that doesn't really happen that much. But it's kind of crazy to think about when you look at some of these older games. Just they kind of knew, with some of these older multiplayer games, just knew how to make their games because they knew, like, look, we got to have more than core gameplay to it, because that's not. I don't think that's super uncommon still for some people to play a game now, like a modern game, play it for a month or two, and then never pick it back up. That's what we did with Halo Infinite, pretty much. Like, look, let me tell you, who was it? It was me, you, John, and somebody else. One of John's friends, I think. When we
Brad,
played when we played that Capture the Flag in Infinite with the four of us. Boy, that was a lot of fun. And
yeah,
maybe we'd be playing more often uh if the four of us all got to play more. But if I just don't think that's a good sign when pretty much a requirement to continue playing your game is you have to have a full party of all four people know each other.
yeah,
That's not, as where, like, you and me, yeah, we could play Mario Party with just us two and two computers, or even with two randos probably. Yeah, we could do that. That's no problem, because whew, this is sad when we're
it is.
realizing this is very sad when we're coming to a conclusion, possibly. Yeah, Mario Party is a better gameplay than Halo. Modern Halo.
Please give your own for your money.
Yeah, you think it's like you get your money's worth out of something like Mario Party, because like, I have more than gotten my money's worth out of those Mario parties that we've played,
Oh yeah,
and it's just it shows like how maybe this is just a long 50-minute case study in like gameplay shift over time, like development shifts over time of like how gameplay has shifted over time, gameplay development has shifted over time, and like how content development of a game has shifted over time. Hmm. I guess it's food for thought.
yeah. I think it kind of all goes back to live service and like,
I do,
that's
yeah, I do think that has I do think that does play a large role, because oh shoot, dude, our player base is kind of going down. Maybe we should get in gear and make something new. Well, all I'm saying is they had everything they needed on those N64 cartridges. They didn't really have to make something new, because those N64 cartridges had, like, look, it's plain and simple as this. Look, if you get tired of racing in Mario Kart 64, go to battle mode. What? That's all it takes sometimes. Just go to battle mode. And that's going to change everything. That's a totally different game. You're not racing anymore. Now you're trying to beat it. Now you're playing a beat 'em up. You're playing a beat 'em up now. Like they had everything they needed on those cartridges to keep like grown freaking men like us playing Mario Kart, saying this is better than this gritty, realistic World War II shooter. What do you mean? He's like, have you ever played a Mario Kart game? Whatever.
Mario, what? Be gone, fool.
Yeah, you've been banished. You're voted off the island for not knowing what Mario Kart is. And then it's like I don't know. And then when it comes to stuff like single player, um, I will say somehow like it comes down to something like how do you play the single player game? That's kind of one thing because the like our easy answer for how does older single player games hold up? Oh, it's mods. Like randomizer, co-op randomizer, co-op Mario 64. Mods are kind of what revitalize it. But how does the original game hold up?
Still
Okay,
pretty good.
they hold up fine, but I will say it's like yeah, it is kind of hard sometimes to go back to the vanilla. Maybe but it comes down to like how do you want to play the game? You know, one of the classic Zelda thing, 3-heart challenge. Play the game with 3 hearts and don't die. Okay, well, that's reasonable, yeah. You got like Mario 64. Like, okay, you could try and speed run the game. Try and speed run the game. Or you can say, all right, well, I'm going to try and avoid water levels this playthrough. We're not going to water levels. I have to get all my stars from non-water levels. Or I have to complete all the like it's like how do you choose to play the game? Like the
Yeah.
core gameplay is set up and you can't there are no more variables. There's no more of that chance factor. Then you have to choose how am I going to play the game this time? Am I going to do a 3-heart challenge? Okay. Am I going to try and not use this item so much? Um am I going to try and speed run Mario 64 like using speedrun strats? Am I gonna try and 100% the game? When I play DK64, am I gonna like avoid using this Kong? Am I gonna avoid using this Kong? If I'm playing Halo campaign, just Needler only? Sounds miserable, but am I
Or
doing a
turn on skulls and do a legendary.
yeah? Am I gonna do a legendary run? It's like you know when me and when me and Jackoff play, um, like I was saying earlier, when we play Brawl in co-op, we always play it on the hardest difficulty. Every time we always play it on the hardest difficulty because, well, if we don't, it's probably going to be a little boring because we kind of have to choose a way to play a game. It's like that. I think that's kind of how it's like the single player games have to hold up is you have to and then by the time you've made new ways to play a game, then when you go back to playing it vanilla, oh yeah, it'd probably be all right. It'd probably be okay.
Again, it's a different experience because we've been
hmm
playing it the other way so much.
It's kind of like you introduce some kind of a chance factor to the game because, you know, I'm playing it. You know how the Dark Souls, Dark Souls, you know, they're obsessed with the no hit runs. Play through the game without getting hit. God, I wish. I wish. Um, or like the no death runs. Like they actually recently, I don't know the details of it exactly, but they've recently released this thing in WoW called hardcore mode where if you die,
Your
boom,
character's gone.
get out. Yeah. Go back to the character collect screen.
Yeah,
That
they
character's
did the
gone.
Diablo.
Oh, they did? Yeah, and that
Yeah.
makes sense cuz it's made by the same company. Um and that's a good way to make the game a little bit more fresh. Oh, that's good because then you're always going to make sure to stop. Hey, let me make sure I'm full health before I go after these mobs. That's a good like it's like how can you make a single player like I mean multiplayer for the most part it'll take care of itself. When it's multiplayer, like, it'll take care of itself. I think that's one more reason. Like it's like single player. Like, look, we all know how gay I am for Oblivion, but that game is still kind of hard to go back to, just because I've played it so much. You know, we might say, yep. I decided, I figured I'd start a new run, Oblivion and Skyrim. Yeah, for how long? 40 minutes? And then you have to kind of figure out,
Yeah.
like, how can I make this gameplay? How can I make this playthrough fresh again? This single player solo gameplay, how can I make it fresh again? And of course, again, something like a Western RPG, the quick answer, dude, just make a different character. Okay. Well, what about the next playthrough? Like, there's only so many characters I can do here. Okay. There's only so many you can do. Like, how you got to keep finding ways to make it fresh, which is fine. That's fine. Because again, like we said, then eventually when you do go back to your classic build that you always play, hey, it's gonna feel fresh again. Awesome.
Mm.
But that's kind of how do you how you have to invent new ways to play the game, which there's nothing wrong with that. Look, man, Super Mario 64 is almost 30 years old. Okay? Super Mario 64 is well over 20 years old. You're going to have to find new ways to play that game. I mean, there's no other way to put it. You're going to have to find new ways, with or without mods. You're going to have to find. Look, it's seen better days. When it comes to older games, retro games, even newer games, like, you're still going to have to find a new way to play it. Like, let's look at stuff that we play. It's like, we're still going to have to find new ways to play Elden Ring. I mean, there's still only so many times you can go through and play that game. Those games somehow remain remarkably fresh. Like the FromSoft Souls games stay remarkably fresh somehow. But when it comes to, like, let's like Rust, how are we going to make this wipe different? Well, truthfully,
Yeah.
you're probably not. Again, just that core gameplay and random chance aspect in the game takes care of itself for the most part. But after a while, games feel samey, and you have to. And that's like, look, look. When you play games as much as, like, people who like video games do, okay, it's gonna get samey at some point, and there's nothing wrong with that. You just have to figure out how can we as the players make the games not so samey and make them, worth playing, so we don't spend an hour pooping on modern games and praising retro games, which I think this has been fairly balanced.
Yeah.
And you've always got, like, look, the inevitable thing that you always think about too is DLC. That'll add, and you hope it's good, the good DLC. The good DLC where it's
Horse armor?
actually something. Yeah, horse armor, exactly. I was thinking about that, how DLC, what DLC should be, bars, is actually something new. Look at it this way. You know how I think Oblivion is unfortunately what started the bad DLC. Like, you know how you had the horse armor and you had like 5 or 6 other little baby DLCs that were just basically player homes. Like, you had the castle, like the warlord's castle, and you
Yep.
had the mage tower, and, like, the thief den, stuff that totally could have been in the base game, but it wasn't, and they were being sold for $5 a pop, and $2 a pop is what it should have been at most. Then, oh, it's my baby, but I have to say it. I have to say it. Knights of the Nine totally could have been in the base game too. It's like,
Oh,
you
yeah.
look at like Knights of the Nine was basically a faction with like 5 or 6 little fetch quests. That was pretty much it. That totally could have been in the base game. Dawnguard for Skyrim was a little bit more, but probably still could have been in the base game. And then think about something like Hearts of Stone and The Witcher 3. They still that was still a step ahead, a step above of Dawn Guard, but some of this stuff probably could have been in the base game. Okay. But then you look at something like Shivering Isles in Oblivion. Oh no, dude, that was not going to be in the base game. That was totally all. That was a good DLC. That was, and then you look at like Dark Souls, Ashes of Ariandel, Dark Souls 3. Yeah, that maybe could have been in the base game. Maybe it worked out. I think on the whole, it worked out okay as a DLC. The Ring City, that was not gonna be. The Ring City was not gonna be in the
No,
That
there's
was
no.
not gonna be in the base game. No way. But then it's like that stuff like horse armor, and The Witcher 3 also, they did a bunch of DLC. Actually, it's not just Hearts of Stone, Blood and Wine. Like they did a bunch of free DLCs that could have been in the game, yes, but the difference, it was the F word. They were free. Like they gave you the wolf armor, and they had a bunch of different, and like some plugins that would change some characters' outfits, and a couple of small quests here and there. But the thing, like the difference was playing, like, dude, they were free. So like we're not going to complain about them because they were free. When you have stuff like when you have to pay for like the Warlord's Castle or horse armor or the Mage Tower in Oblivion, like dude, if it's more than $2, it's not worth the money. Like they did it in Metal Gear Solid 5. It was always a staple. There was always a staple in the Metal Gear Solid games. I think is like after you beat the game, you on your next playthrough they would give you a tuxedo, and Snake would wear the tuxedo. And I don't remember if it actually did something or it just looked funny. But in Metal Gear Solid 5, they technically made it DLC. It was only 99 cents, but okay, I can sort of give that a pass cuz it's only 99 cents, but at the same time, I mean every other game it was not actually a DLC, but you know, sometimes money does talk, and sometimes it's okay that the DLC. It's yeah, this could have been in the base game, but if it's dirt cheap, like 99 cents for the tuxedo, whatever, I guess. And I think, like you say too, some like the root of all evil to an extent, most of the extent, is live service because like yeah, you look at Knights of the Nine. This could have been in the base game, but at least they kind of made it cool and added. Yeah, probably could have been in the base game, but whatever. Dawn Guard could have been in the base game. Ashes of Arendelle, maybe could have been in the base game. But then you get like that kind of seems to be the staple. The first DLC is kind of small, where maybe it could have been in the base game. Then you get the second DLC. This was not going to be in the DL. This was not going to be in the main game. But that's okay because usually that second DLC, that second bigger DLC, is usually very quality. So cool. I'm with it. I guess I'm with it.
Get down with it.
But like you know what? It's the thing. Like the question always is what if you had DLC for stuff like Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Super Mario 64, DK 64, all your classics, RE4, Star Fox 64, Metroid Prime. Could you imagine? Or if it's something like it had 2 more months of development, they could have packed more stuff into it. That is what I think the bigger pack of DLC, that's kind of what the intention of the bigger pack of DLC is well shoot, we would have loved to have added this into the game, but the deadline caught us. So here's some stuff we wanted to add into the game as a smaller DLC. Okay. I mean, can you imagine if there were 2 more zones in Ocarina of Time? Can you imagine
Nope.
that? I would love
I think
that.
there are hardware restrictions on.
Yeah,
Ocarina.
hardware too. That's something else we couldn't really broach, but well, we can just take a break for a little bit and come back to it.